welcome to another episode of Codo Cinema, the podcast show where I talk about movies. I'm your host, the man, the myth, the legend, Mark Codo, aka Codo Man. So anyway, with award seasons coming around, whether it's the Oscars, which announces the best of the films, although although I guess you can make the argument that Hollywood has definitely come under fire with many of their films, particularly losing their audiences. But other than that, the Golden Globes were already a thing, so that was definitely something. But what about an award show that announces the worst of the worst? And what I mean the worst of the worst, I'm talking about like the worst films of all time. Even though some films may be bad or so bad they're good, they they get nominated for like an awards, and that could be either for a worst or like a worst nomination, and and since this episode is going to be about worst films, I am definitely going to refer to as the Golden Raspberries, or should I say the Razzies. Now, for those of you probably wondering what the heck is the Golden Raspberry, or should I say the Golden Raspberry Awards, um, basically the Golden Raspberry Awards, let's just say it is an opposite of an Academy Award. Basically, the Golden Raspberry Awards basically announces the worst of the worst of the worst in the film industry, particularly like the worst, basically like the worst films. And of course, they, much like the Academy Awards, they do like worst picture, worst director, worst actor, worst actress, worst supporting actor, worst supporting actress, worst screen combo, worst prequel, remake, ripoff, or sequel, worst screenplay, and so forth. So that's basically the opposite of what the Oscars had, but this time this is basically announcing the worst of the worst, which is basically the Golden Raspberry Awards, or just Razzies for short. We got the announcement of the nominations. So and this is also in an article. Actually, there are other articles too, but this article from Variety also has the nominations and of course who is going up against who for like for the worst of the worst. All right, so according to this article, now this article is from Variety and is titled "Razzie Awards 2023: Jared Leto, Tom Hanks up for worst performances." Ooh, that's a pretty rough title to be in there right now because let's be honest, Jared Leto and Tom Hanks. Actually, well, first of all, let's start with Jared Leto. Jared Leto was in Morbius, which I will say I saw in theaters, and boy, oh boy, I had a bit of experience with that film. It was not a great film, although Jared Leto, I didn't think Jared Leto was that bad. I mean, he was okay. I didn't think it was terrible, and going up to Tom Hanks, well, I guess you could say he had, let's say he had two films under his belt that weren't, well, let's just say one of them was good, the other one not so much, and he's both nominated for worst actor and worst supporting actor and a worst screen combo. Oh boy! So let me go into this article. Leading the field, and I quote, leading the field is Andrew Dominik's controversial Marilyn Monroe biopic Blonde with 8 nominations, while Anna de Armas is not up for Worst Actress. The film is nominated for Worst Picture and Dominic for Worst Director and Screenplay. Evan Williams and Xavier Samuel are both competing for Worst Supporting Actor alongside Maud Sun and Pete Davidson for Good Morning, and Oscar winner Tom Hanks for Elvis. And also, just to let you all know, Tom Hanks is nominated in both categories for Elvis, which is basically worst supporting actor and worst screen combo. And I'll get to that pretty soon. Good, just for like a little detail. And of course, he's also nominated for worst actor for his turn as Geppetto in Disney's live-action Pinocchio, basically Disney's live-action remake of Pinocchio, which I also did a review on, and I had a lot to say about that film. So yeah, And of course, filling out the worst actor race are Colson Baker, also known as Machine Gun Kelly, whose stoner comedy Good Morning picked up 7 nominations in total. Pete Davidson for a voice role in Marmaduke. Sylvester Stallone for Samaritan. And Jared Leto, as I mentioned, Morbius. Okay, so basically, for the Morbius portion, the Sony Pictures vampire movie based on the Marvel villain flopped at the box office with $39 million in its opening weekend in April, and of course, the the movie was also panned by critics and by critics alike, and it literally became an internet meme. It's Morbin time. You get the whole Morbin time meme. I mean, that has literally become a meme. That's the reason why this whole film exists, because of this one meme. It's Morbin time. I mean, is that going to be the name of the sequel for Morbius if that's ever going to happen? Anyway, Disney's Pinocchio is nominated for 6 Razzie Awards, Morbius receiving 5 Razzie Award nominations, and of course, The King's Daughter getting 3 Razzie Award nominations. So, anyway, yeah. Anyway, there's also an absent slate of nominations that is basically given to Bruce Willis, who appeared in 11 movies in 2022. Because last year the Razzies created a category called Worst Performance by Bruce Willis in a 2021 Movie, but the Satirical Awards organization rescinded the award last month after Willis's family revealed that Bruce Willis was struggling with a language disorder that is caused by brain damage that affects a person's ability to communicate. So basically, the pronunciation of this whole disorder, I can't pronounce it, but it is a disorder that is caused by brain damage that affects a person's ability to communicate. But if you thought the Razzies would decide to be less mean spirited this time around, well, think again, as this year's nominees for Worst Actors include Firestarter star Ryan Kiara Armstrong, who is 12 years old. Oh my goodness. A 12-year-old actress being nominated for for worst actress for a worst actress category. That seems harsh because if you really think about it, look, it's basically kids starting their acting careers in Hollywood. I mean, sure, they may start off low, but they'll pick up. They'll pick up and do better. But why be nominated for a Razzie for worst actress if this actress is 12 years old? This is a kid. This is literally a kid. That is pretty rough for the Razzies right there. Man, that's just brutal. That is brutal, and I feel sorry for that kid too. I feel sorry for Bruce Willis as well. It's because last year he was nominated, and I think he won in that category for whatever that category the Razzies made up for, and yet rescinded the decision after the whole disorder situation came in. But now things got even worse because of the fact that now the Razzies are being mean spirited to this 12-year-old kid who basically Ryan Kiera Armstrong, who's nominated for Worst Actress for Firestarter, who is 12 years old. That is pretty harsh right there. That is very, very harsh for the Razzies to do. This is a kid. Come on, give the kid a break. The kid was just starting. All right. So let's go into the nominations. So let's start off with Worst Picture. Worst Picture, you got Blonde, Good Morning, The King's Daughter, Morbius, and Pinocchio. Now, I've seen both Morbius and Pinocchio, and I have thoughts about those films, but I don't know which film is going to win because it's definitely going to be hard to say. Now for Pinocchio, this is basically Disney Plus. This is probably the first Disney Plus movie to be nominated for a Razzie because Pinocchio was put to streaming service instead of being put into theaters. Because obviously enough, Disney is pretty scared right now because of all the trouble they're getting into with many of their films that have been coming out in the 2020s just recently. But other than that, Morbius. I mean, I don't know about Morbius though. I mean, yeah, Morbius was pretty bad, but does it really deserve a Worst Picture nomination or a Worst Picture win? I am not really sure. Now, I have not seen The King's Daughter, Good Morning, nor Blonde, but I've not seen any of those other three films that are being nominated for Worst Picture. Morbius and Pinocchio I've seen, but other than that, not much right there. For Worst Director, you got Judd Apatow for The Bubble, Andrew Dominic for Blonde, Daniel Espinosa for Morbius, Machine Gun Kelly and Mod Sun for Good Morning. Good morning, mourn. It sounds like mourn, like basically you're mourning for somebody. Because this film, Good Morning, that Machine Gun Kelly did, is a play on words for good morning. You know, morning, sunrise, good morning. But now Machine Gun Kelly did a movie, which is basically a play on words, good morning. And now for the other worst director, Robert Zemeckis for Pinocchio. Okay, before I move on before I move on to the other categories, I feel bad for Robert Zemeckis right now because Robert Zemeckis has made some great films in the past, like Back to the Future, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Forrest Gump, and many other films. And I feel bad for this guy, and I feel really bad for this guy because he went from like writing and directing some great films to, let's just say, to somewhat average films. Now, don't get me wrong, some of his average films I actually liked, like Polar Express, Beowulf, Disney's A Christmas Carol. Those are some decent films, but that's like motion capture. And boy, that's a pretty risky and bold move that Robert Zemeckis did. But now it seems as though Disney dragged Robert Zemeckis under the bus for Pinocchio because I wanted this film to be good at best, but now it seems as though Disney has put their fingertips on this film. It seems like Disney was directing, and I'm not talking about Walt Disney himself. I'm talking about the company. It seems as though the company put the fingertips on this film instead of letting Robert Zemeckis do what Robert Zemeckis does, because Pinocchio could have been a pretty good Robert Zemeckis film, but no, that's not what we got. But now Robert Zemeckis is being thrown under the bus for being nominated for Worst Director. I mean, I hope the rest of his film career is okay, because I heard he's doing another film that is supposed to be coming out in the next couple of years or so. So I hope whatever film Robert Zemeckis is doing now, I hope that one is okay. So anyway, moving forward, worst actor, you got Pete Davidson for Marmaduke, which is basically an animated film, but I'm pretty sure there was a live action film that came out about over a decade ago, which actually had Owen Wilson voicing the character of Marmaduke. So it's kind of weird that there's an animated film called Marmaduke, which is basically ironic because, like I said, there was a live action version of Marmaduke, and now we got an animated version of Marmaduke. But this time around, it's Pete Davidson voicing Marmaduke. Tom Hanks as Geppetto for Pinocchio. I will say this: I think Tom Hanks was okay in Pinocchio, but his accent, his Italian accent, didn't really land. Although there were definitely a few moments in that film where I thought Tom Hanks was okay, but since now Disney has butchered this film, Disney butchered Pinocchio, and of course Disney was the studio who made the original Pinocchio. Now they butchered the remake, and of course you got Machine Gun Kelly as London Clash for Good Morning, Jared Leto for Morbius as Dr. Michael Morbius, and of course Sylvester Stallone for Samaritan as Joe Smith Samaritan Nemesis. Now, Now, Jared Leto, like I said, like I said, I don't think Jared Leto is. I don't think he was that bad. He really wasn't that as. He wasn't really bad. He was pretty decent in Morbius. It's just like the film was a mess. The film for Morbius was a mess, and I think Jared Leto was okay. It's just a shame too, because this film Morbius would have been a pretty decent film, but it seems as though Sony and Marvel had no idea where to go with Morbius, since Morbius is also a character, and Spider-Man was not in this film, which also makes it worse. And they did the same thing with the Venom films. Now what they got up next is the Kraven the Hunter, which I don't think Spider-Man is going to be in that one, but hey, we'll see what's going to happen with Sony's Spider Universe, or Sony's Spider-Man Universe. Now, going forward is Worst Actress. Ryan Kiera Armstrong as Charlene McGee for Firestarter, and I will say this: for a 12-year-old actress. Oh boy, this is pretty rough. That is probably I will say this: that is a nasty move that the Razzie just made on this 12-year-old actress. Now, I've not seen Firestarter, but I don't think she deserves. I don't think she deserves that nomination. She does not deserve that nomination. I will say that right now. But what I do know of Firestarter is basically based on the Stephen King novel, and I've not seen the film, so I don't know what to say. But I will say this: nominating a child actor or actress at a very young age for a Razzie, I think that is a very bad move. I think that is a very bad move. I think that is a very bad move from the Razzies themselves over there. Bryce Dallas Howard for Jurassic World Dominion as Claire Deering. Now, I have not seen Jurassic World Dominion, so I don't know much. But I don't think Bryce Dallas Howard deserves that nomination. I mean, it wasn't really her fault. It's more on the writing, for what I heard. Diane Keaton for Mac and Rita, and of course Kaya Scodelario for The King's Daughter, and Alicia Silverstone for The Requiem. Okay, not much to say here, so I'll move forward. For Worst Supporting Actor, Pete Davidson. Boy, Pete Davidson's getting two nominations for Worst Supporting Actor and Worst Actor. Pete Davidson for Good Morning as Barry. Tom Hanks for the role of Colonel Tom Parker for Elvis. Xavier Samuel for Blonde as Charles Chaplin Jr. Charles Chaplin Jr. Maud Sun for Good Morning as Dylan, and Evan Williams for Blonde as Edward G. Eddie Robinson Jr. Now, oh boy, we got more Tom Hanks here. Tom Hanks plays the role of Colonel Tom Parker. Now, I will say this. I think this was one of the roles where I think he was okay, but the accent for Elvis did not land for me. It feels very inconsistent. Now, if you take the accent out of the equation, I think Tom Hanks was okay. But that being said, I heard a lot of people did not enjoy Tom Hanks' performance as Colonel Tom Parker, which is something because I actually went to see Elvis, and I loved that film. That film, Elvis, was awesome. Austin Butler did a fantastic job as Elvis Presley, and I believe he's up for an Oscar nomination for Best Actor. And I'm pretty sure he's going to go for the win, particularly for Austin Butler. Austin Butler's lead role in Elvis, he's definitely going to get that nomination. I believe he will get that nomination for Best Actor and a possible win for the Oscars. Now, there is a rumor spreading around that Elvis may win an Oscar and a Razzie. Now, that is a rumor. That's a rumor because there was another film that came out in the 80s called Wall Street with Michael Douglas. Michael Douglas won a Best Actor award for the Oscars, and Daryl Hannah won a Razzie award for, I believe it was Worst Actress, I believe. And that was the only film. Wall Street was the first and only film to win an Oscar and a Razzie. Elvis might be the second film in history that could possibly win an Oscar and a Razzie. I don't know if that's gonna happen. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, Tom Hanks as Colonel Tom Parker. I thought he was okay, but I will say this: the accent did not go well with the role that Tom Hanks had. Now, worst supporting actress: Adria Arjona for Morbius as Martine Bancroft, which is basically which I'm pretty sure Martine Bancroft is the love interest to Dr. Michael Morbius, I believe. Van Bingbing for the 355 and the King's Daughter. Lorraine Bracco, who voiced Sophia the Seagull in Pinocchio. Penelope Cruz for the 355 as a character named Rivera. And Maria Sorvino for Lamborghini, the man behind the legend. Alright, so next category is worst screen combo. Now, the first one is both real life characters in the fallacious White House bedroom scene. And this is from Blonde, so I don't know what screen combo is referring. I don't know what screen combo, who's involved for the screen combo for Blonde. I'm not really sure because I have not seen Blonde. Alright, so I'll move forward. Blonde is also nominated again for worst screen combo, particularly for Andrew Dominic and his issues with women. I don't know the story. Oh, I don't know the entire story behind that. To be honest, I will say this: I don't know the entire story of Blonde, but I heard it is a controversial film on its own. Anyway, Tom Hanks in his latex Latin face and ludicrous accent from Elvis. I mentioned Tom Hanks's accent. Latex Latin face. I mean, yeah, I guess you could say that there was makeup for that, so I guess you could say that. Machine Gun Kelly and Mod Sun for Good Morning. The two 365 Days sequels, 365 Days this day and the next 365 Days. And that's pretty much it. Worst prequel, remake, ripoff, or sequel: Blonde. 365 Days this day and the next 365 Days. Firestarter, Jurassic World Dominion, and Pinocchio. Those films are nominated for worst prequel, remake, ripoff, or sequel. And of course, worst screenplay: Blonde, Andrew Dominic, based on a novel by Joyce Carol Oates. Good Morning, written by Machine Gun Kelly and Mod Sun. Jurassic World Dominion, screenplay by Emily Carmichael and Colin Trevorrow, story by Colin Trevorrow and Derek Connolly. Morbius, story and screenplay by Matt Sazama and Burke Sharpless. And Pinocchio, screenplay by Robert Zemeckis and Chris Weitz, based on the 1940 Disney animated film of the same name and the novel The Adventures of Pinocchio by Carlo Collodi. And that is basically it. Now, oh boy. I have not seen some of the films I mentioned off of the nominations. I have not seen, and yes, I've seen Pinocchio, Elvis, and Morbius. I have not seen Jurassic World Dominion, nor Blonde, nor Good Morning, or any of the other films I mentioned on this list. Although it is pretty crazy because it's a crazy awards it's a pretty crazy awards ceremony. The Razzies, they just picked out the worst of the worst, and plus some of the movies that the Razzies picked out are actually turned out to be pretty good. But at the same time, there are definitely some moments in good films that didn't really land. To be fair, and boy, it is really something that the Razzies are doing, and at the very least, there's not really much else to say, but I wanted to do this episode because the Razzie nominations has dropped, and of course the Oscars are coming up pretty soon. So there's that. So yeah. So anyway, I think the most film that I feel very sorry for is, in my opinion, Morbius, because I don't think Morbius deserves the hate it gets, because because I feel like Jared Leto would have done a very good job with that film if Sony didn't meddle in too much in that film, because that film's trying to figure out that if it's gonna fit into Sony's Spider-Man universe or the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because that film went back and forth, and for what we got for Morbius, the execution was terrible. Now, shout out to Jared Leto, though. He did not deserve that Razzie nomination. I think he did okay. It's just that many people are giving Jared Leto too much too much garbage on him. Like the critics are giving Jared Leto too much garbage. I mean, he's definitely got a fan base around. And I feel really bad for Jared Leto because he would have been an awesome Morbius. He was decent, but not as great. So shout out to Jared Leto though. And anyway, and also another person I feel bad for, Robert Zemeckis. I felt bad for Robert Zemeckis, and I already mentioned Robert Zemeckis already in this episode of how bad I felt for him. But he didn't deserve to be dragged under the bus by Disney for the Pinocchio film, because he would have done a fantastic job if it was just Robert Zemeckis filming this Pinocchio film. Although we did get a good Pinocchio film in 2022, which was Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, which actually won the Golden Globe for Best Animated Feature Film. And yeah, and there's definitely a high chance that film, Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, is definitely up for the nomination for Best Animated Feature at the Oscars. So we'll definitely have to wait and see what the Oscars are going to look like. And also that one girl from Firestarter. I mean, 12-year-old actress being nominated for a Razzie. That is hard. I mean, that was a pretty rough move that the Razzies just made. But I will say this. That girl, I mean, I have not seen Firestarter, but the main girl who played the main character in Firestarter, she did not deserve that Razzie. I mean, 12 years old, come on. She'll get better and better down the road. I mean, hey, she's got a bright future ahead, but in my opinion, she'll definitely get better roles down the road, right there. So anyway, that's all I have for the Razzie nominations. So what do you all think? What do you all think of the nominations that the Golden Raspberries just dropped? I mean, did you think some of them deserved the nominations? Do you think some of the films did not deserve did not deserve those nominations? Let me know your thoughts. But anyway, that's all I have. Thank you all for tuning into Codo Cinema. I'm your host Mark Codo, aka Codo Man. Remember to watch movies and stay positive.